All right, boys and girls, welcome back to the drive-through for a special Thursday night football Bengals edition. Brought to you by the deli. Hungry? Stop by the deli and get yourself all your tailgating needs, including cold-cut sandwiches, all the bread you could want, and plenty of delicious toppings. All right, I don't even know what that was. Here we are, 4-2, okay? 10 years ago, we taught this lesson a completely different way. We would say that the vertex of a parabola in, this is called standard form, was x equals minus b over 2a, and y equals f of minus b over 2a. And, it was very complex. We used to spend days on this section. And I've actually included a video on the Blackboard site, so if you don't have a graphing calculator, which, again, we need to help you get one, I'll show you how to do that. But now this becomes a very repetitive, easy lesson, because we are simply going to use the strategy of using our graphing calculator. So here we'll do number one. Y equals, let me move this away, negative x squared plus 2x minus 5. Okay, we'll graph it to start. Notice that it's an upside down parabola. The y-intercept is negative 5, and that's because you put in 0 for x, you get negative 5. So, but we don't know what the vertex is, and there's, other than taking the opposite of 2 divided by negative 1, that's one way to find the x value. But what we're going to do is just take a look at our table and look for where our symmetry is. So notice here, you got a negative 8, you got a negative 8, you got a negative 5, you got a negative 5. Here, this little negative 4 stands by itself. That is the vertex point. So the vertex is 1, comma, negative 4. Okay? Well, if you remember, the axis of symmetry is always x equals this number. But if you don't believe it, let's take a look at the graph. And it looks like the axis of symmetry is right here. That's the line that divides the parabola into equal sides on both sides, or equal parts on both sides. So indeed, the axis of symmetry is x equals 1. X equals 1. Okay? The maximum or minimum value, okay, well, it is a maximum because this parabola is flipped upside down. And it looks like, again, from our table, the biggest that y ever gets is the vertex, so that's going to be negative 4. Okay? And the range, keep in mind we're not asking for the domain today because the domain is all reals for all this question. So for the domain, notice that y can never be positive. In fact, it can never be negative 1. It can never be negative 2. It can never be negative 3. Y is always less than or equal to negative 4 because this is a maximum value. You could also write that as y goes from negative infinity to negative 4. Either one of those are acceptable ways to write that answer. Okay, off to a good start. We're going to skip forward to the back because I think you guys will be able to handle the front. Just make sure you're checking your answers in case you're doing something wrong. And we're going to do 10 and 11 as a little bit of a review from yesterday. These are not calculator problems. These are just difficult problems. Keep in mind that the intercept is 4. Well, that means 0, comma 4. They're hiding information there from you. Okay? So I'm going to recommend that you guys do this exactly like you did yesterday. Just use the standard form. Just use the vertex form. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. This is x. This is y. This is h. This is k. Okay, so 4 equals a times 0 minus a negative 2, so plus 2, squared plus 1. Okay? 4 equals a times 2 squared plus 1. 4 equals 4a plus 1. 3 equals 4a. Divide each side by 4. And you get a equals 3/4. Okay, it says sketch each parabola using the given information. So now we know that the equation of this parabola, I'm just going to change colors here, is y equals 3/4 times x minus 0 squared, x plus 2 squared, x plus 2 squared plus 1. Okay? Now we go to the calculator. Y equals parentheses 3 divided by 4. You see how I did that? 3/4 times another parentheses x plus 2, close it, squared plus 1. Graph it. Nice. I can do that. Notice it has gone up 1 and left 2. We expected that. Let's go to the table to get some points. We got -2, 1. That is the vertex. -2, 1. -1, 1.75. -3, 1.75. So this is going to be a little flatter. 0, 4. That we knew. Notice from symmetry, I know that it must be -4, 4 because of our axis of symmetry. But if I don't trust that, I could always scroll up and get some more points. Okay? So, there's our parabola. Okay, so I'll leave it at that because I think that's enough help. If you struggle with that a little bit, go ahead and rewind the video and watch that problem again. But I'm going to try to keep this video short so that you guys can get your work done in class and you can, stay up late and watch the Bengals game like any good teacher would recommend. So, let's take a look at 13 here. Do you remember, let me just take an aside. You remember when you learned this? 5x to the 4th minus 10x squared. And your directions in Algebra 1 were to factor, and you were like, okay, what number goes into 5 and 10? That's a 5. What is the highest exponent that I could take out of both of these values? X squared. And so that leaves you with an x squared here and a 2 there. So that's called factoring. For most of Algebra 1, you probably got really annoyed by it, and you were like, why are we doing this? Why are we just taking one thing that looks this way and writing it again in a different way, the exact same thing? You taught us how to distribute. Now why do we have to undistribute? Well, I feel you. But everything you learned was kind of to help set you up for success in math. Okay, not that you're always going to use your math, but we're just trying to help you be the best mathletes you can be. So, when it says, what is the vertex form? Well, we need to get this equation and write it as y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Here, right here, is where the factoring comes in. Okay? So what number? We can forget about the 19 for a second. Just leave it out. Okay? That's going to be our k. But what number goes into 4x squared and 16x? A 4. Okay? Now we don't want to take out the x squared. Okay, tell you what, we're going to scrap this so far. I just realized that we're going to have to complete the square for this, and we haven't gone over that in this class yet, and so this isn't going to be the best way to do this, okay? So, I'm sorry. Let me start over, and let's just use our graphing calculator. Let's become experts at using this thing. Okay, so once again, we're going to graph this. So y equals 4x squared plus 16x plus 19. Graph that thing. Alright, so we got a thin parabola, which we would expect. Okay, now what we need to do is we need to find a point on the graph and the vertex of the graph. So notice the vertex is its lowest point because this parabola was facing up. So the vertex is -2, 3. Okay, and a point on the graph is, let's call it -1, 7. You can use any point on that list. It's all going to get you back to the same answer because that's what this is. It's a list of points that satisfy the equation. We're coming up with the equation. So, once again, we'll go back to this. Here is our h, here is our k, here is our x, here is our y. Y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Y equals, okay, 7 equals a times -1 plus 2 squared plus 3. 7 equals a times -1 squared is just 1. Sorry, +1 squared is just 1 plus 3. Subtract 3. You get 4 equals a times 1. So a is 4. So now we know the vertex form of number 13 can be written as y equals 4 times x minus, where's our h value? A -2, so x plus 2 squared, and then our k is 3. And that's how you're going to do these. We're just going to use our graphing calculator. Obviously, we have to be very good at this method. Okay, so you really got to make sure that you're not skipping over this really important process of how to solve for a. This is probably 6 questions in our last 2 videos that we've used this process. So if you have any questions with the process, you got to come see me. Who dey? Boom!